Hello Boxster owners. Today I thought I will try to do a video on the temperature gauge flashing red light. I was driving one night and suddenly the temperature started dropping and the flashing red light came up. So now I want to find out what the problem is. I have checked the water pump. It looks okay. It's not, doesn't have any leakage or movement. So far, the temperature sensor wire Wait a minute, let me move around. It's so small in here. So the temperature sensor, the wiring looks okay. The pigtail doesn't have a problem falling off or anything. So I guess I would have to figure out whether it is a temperature sensor or something else, like a thermostat. Stay tuned. So I will replace the temperature sensor first and see if the temperature sensor light is actually misreading. And if this doesn't work, I think it could be the thermostat. The reason is because when I have the heater on in the car running, it doesn't really, on high, it's not extremely hot. So if the thermostat was failing in closed position, I think that could probably be the problem, where the heat is not coming out as much. And the car temperature sensor is reading it incorrectly, or the thermostat is on the way to fail. So, but I think a thermostat, when it fails, it should be failing on the open position. But we'll see. Let me replace this one first. It should be quite easy. Unfortunately for me, I can't possibly hold the phone and then unscrew or loosen this temperature sensor, which is right here. You take off your engine cover, you find the first, I don't know if this goes to the alternator. Down here is a square, and on the side of the block, that's the temperature sensor. Probably very hard to see, but on the side of the block there's a temperature sensor, and that's the connector right there. So in my case, when I went to unscrew it or loosen it, it was already loose, and that resolved the mystery, where one time I found a puddle of coolant on the ground, but I lifted the car up and I checked, didn't seem like anywhere anything was leaking. So I guess my problem that triggered the temperature warning light was the sensor was loose. So before you guys go and order a part, it's not that much money, it's 40 bucks, but check your wire connection and check if this was loose. I think that was my problem, and since I have a new part, I replaced it anyway. So now because I live in a super extreme cold area, I drove for 10 minutes. The light went off. However, the temperature hasn't fully come up. So I would have to go out and drive it for probably another half an hour or so to see if it's functioning correctly. If not, and the temperature is too low, then I think the thermostat might be broken, meaning that either it is in a full open position, so the temperature is staying low, because it doesn't regulate temperature anymore, or that the well, I think the thermostat shouldn't be broken in the closed position. It should be in the open position. That might be the reason why I don't really have high temperatures. So I'm going to go and test drive it. So that was my experiment, or what I have learned. So again, this temperature sensor, it is located right here, and you will need a 22mm wrench, but you'll find it, you need a deep socket actually, with some kind of a flexible extender, because you don't really have any space in here to work with. But I think if you jack the car up and you reach it from underneath, it would be really easy. However though, you don't need to do that. That's a lot more work. You can get it from here with a little bit of patience and a little bit of time, since you don't really have to torque it down like extremely tight. So accessing from the engine bay door is perfectly fine. 22mm and a deep socket, and preferably a flexible type of ratchet that is not with a really thick handlebar. So I have left the car running, and then the temperature has come up. Initially the temperature light was just flashing, and then the temperature stayed below the first marker. So I think now if I drive the car and then it cools down too soon, the thermostat is done, because it must be in the open position where you don't regulate the temperature anymore. So that means it's getting when you're driving it, it'll cool off a lot faster. But if the thermostat is in the open position, I don't think I'm going to bother to replace it, as long as the cooling system is working. I'm fine with it, as long as there is a temperature. I'm fine with it. I guess part of the thermostat functioning is for the emission efficiency, but since I normally drive the car hard anyway, I don't mind a little extra cooling. Just have it open and let the coolant circulate. And in some of the race cars, people don't have thermostats anyway, so it is perfectly fine to drive with the thermostat in the open position. But if you live in a warm area, probably even better for you. You get the constant flow of coolant. And because I live right now in a cold area, as I drive it, it'll just cool off quite quickly unless I drive it hard, I believe. But this confirms that, okay, the sensor is working, the temperature is back up. So I guess my problem was that the sensor was just too loose, but I replaced it anyway. So now it is, temperature has climbed back up. I tightened it. So this is my analysis of the problem, and I think for me, problem solved. Only if I want to go ahead and replace the thermostat, which I think I'm not going to do. So if you guys have a problem with the temperature light flashing and this needle is below or showing that there is no temperature, first, it's very easy. Just check to make sure that your sensor is not loose. Mine came loose. I didn't use any torque to remove it. It was just really loose. And then at one point I kind of found a puddle of coolant on the floor. I didn't know where it came from. I checked all the connection. It was fine. So this solved the mystery where that coolant came from, you know, maybe more than a year ago, a few years ago. So another thing I want to add is that, okay, the sensor isn't torqued on like 100 pounds or anything. They are attaching to the engine block, so it's meant to be loose. I didn't check the spec, but I believe it'll probably be about 18 foot-pounds, and it's a 22 millimeter socket. And if you actually go and replace it, you don't have to try to torque it down like crazy, you know. So I'm just doing a wrist tight since it does have a washer, and I believe my problem is solved. And this will be the end of my video. Thank you very much.